Today, we will be talking about some common financial mistakes people make in their 20s and how you can avoid some of these common money traps. Your 20s can either be your best friend or your worst enemy when it comes to personal finance, because how you handle your money when you're young will determine how your financial life will look in your 30s, 40s, and beyond. If you go through your 20s mismanaging your finances, you could end up drowning in debt and even going bankrupt before you reach your 30s. So if you're currently in your 20s, this video will help you identify if you have made some of these common money mistakes, and if you have, then you can work on fixing them, and if you aren't in your 20s yet, then that's even better because you will know what money traps you need to avoid when you reach your 20s. The reason why people fall victim to common money traps varies, but it could be you didn't have anyone teach you proper money management skills, so when you were able to apply for a credit card, you went crazy and maxed it out. Or once you got a good paying job, you had more money than ever before, so you began buying everything you couldn't afford before. But the reason doesn't matter. What matters is that you know what these common money traps are, so you can avoid them whenever possible. And if you're new here, my name is Edgar, and on this channel we talk about personal finance, investing, and business. So if that is something you want to learn about, consider subscribing. So let's jump right into the first common money trap you should avoid, and that is collecting large amounts of debt. The biggest and most common source of debt for people ages 18 to 24 is student loans, and is no surprise because the cost of college has been going up for many years. The average loan amount is around $31,000, and this alone will set you back many years when compared to someone who doesn't have any student loan payments and instead has invested that money. Even though there are many forms of debt, student loans is one of the easiest to get trapped into because most 18, 19, and 20-year-olds don't have any idea how that debt is going to weigh them down later on in life. And if you're like me, your parents didn't teach you anything about money management, and school definitely doesn't teach you that. So it's very easy to graduate with thousands and thousands of dollars in debt. Don't get me wrong though, getting a college education is great, but you must know what career path you want to follow and whether you even need a college degree for it. If you don't need a college education for the career you want, then you don't have to worry about student loan debt. But if your career path does require a college degree, then you should ask yourself if taking out student loans is worth it. If you want to pursue a career that requires a 4-year degree and you're funding most of that degree with debt, and the job you expect to get when you finish school is not a high-paying job, then all that debt is going to have a negative effect on your financial life. However, if the job you're getting after graduation is a high-paying job that allows you to repay your student loan debt within a year or two, then that scenario makes more sense. But even if your career path pays enough and you can pay back your student loans within a short period of time, you should still look for ways you can save. For example, instead of transferring to a 4-year college right after high school, you can go to a community college and finish your general education classes there, and then you can transfer to a 4-year college and finish your degree. This alone can save you thousands of dollars, and it does not make a difference for your degree whether you did 4 years at the same school or you transfer from a community college. It's not like your degree will say you completed your general education classes at a community college, so the degree is worth less. The other very common form of debt that many young people get trapped with is credit card debt or other forms of consumer debt. The reason young people collect large amounts of credit card debt is the same reason why they get trapped with student loans, and that's because they don't understand how to manage their finances. When you go and get your first credit card, it feels like free money, so many people just begin using it to pay for things they don't need, and after you get that first credit card, other credit card companies begin to send you offers, or your favorite store at the mall offers you a credit card, and before you know it, you have multiple credit cards, and if you carry balances on many cards, it can become a struggle just to keep up with the minimum payments, and at that rate, it can take you many years to pay them off. So when you are in your 20s, you want to avoid going into debt, and if you must get some type of loan, you should only borrow the bare minimum you need and avoid any unnecessary debt. The second money trap you should avoid in your 20s is spending on expensive cars. This is probably one of the most common mistakes young people make, and it's not hard to understand why people fall into this trap since I'm a big car guy. I totally understand why people buy expensive cars. I know how fun they can be and how attached people can be with their cars. But you must understand how owning an expensive car can affect you financially in either a bad way or a good way. An example of how an expensive car can benefit you financially is if you own some type of car related business like a car repair shop or a shop where you customize cars. In this case, having an expensive car can be used to promote your business by having your logos on the car or taking your car to car meets where you can find new customers. In this case, your car will most likely pay for itself when you consider all the business you generated from having that car. And because you're using it for your business, you would be able to take advantage of tax benefits. However, this is not going to be the case for many people. Most people cannot leverage their car to generate more business and increase their income, and this is when owning an expensive car becomes a money trap. I know many people who are driving cars that cost $50,000 plus, and they are working minimum wage jobs, living with their parents, or living with 4 roommates in a small apartment and are barely getting by. Again, I understand why many people get expensive cars, or why guys invest so much money into their cars, even if you do it because it's your passion and not because you are trying to show off. The point is, spending most of your money on something that is going down in value is not a smart financial decision. If you live in a big city with lots of public transportation, then you might not even need a car, and that can save you several $1,000s every year. However, I know that for most people, having a car is a must, so in that case, be smart about your car purchase. So instead of going and buying a brand new car that is going to lose a big percentage of its value in the first year, you should buy a car that is 2 or 3 years old with low miles, and this way you let someone else take the hit for the car's depreciation. The third money trap you should avoid in your 20s is spending too much on housing. This is another common money mistake many people make, especially young people who are just out of college and they get a high paying job, or even someone who begins earning a high income, because they go and rent a luxury apartment, rent a big house, and sometimes they even go and buy their own house, and most of the time they end up spending a big part of their paycheck on housing alone. Then many people don't even spend a lot of time in their apartment or house because they're always working or out doing other things, so you're spending a huge part of your income on something you don't get full use out of. The smarter thing would be to live with your parents for as long as you can and begin saving and investing the money you would have used for housing. Even if you only live at home for a year or two longer, you will save thousands. Depending on where you live, your rent will vary, but let's say you are renting a nice apartment or house and you're paying $2,000 per month. Over the course of 2 years, that's going to cost you $48,000, and that's not even taking into account utilities and other expenses you will have to pay for. Now, if it's not possible for you to move in with your parents after college because they live far from where your job is, then you should shop around for a cheaper place to live. That does not mean you have to go rent a tiny room in the ghetto, but you can find a studio or a 1-bedroom apartment. By saving money on housing early on, you will have more money later on that you can use to invest in real estate or stocks. You will have more money to start that business you've always wanted, and you will have more money to retire early and live the rest of your life on that beautiful white sandy beach. The next money trap you should avoid in your 20s is not setting up an emergency fund. It is estimated that about 40% of Americans wouldn't be able to cover a $400 expense with cash or savings, which is another way of saying that almost half of all Americans have no financial flexibility and are one expense away from going over the edge. When you're spending everything you make and you're living paycheck to paycheck, you will resort to using debt to cover any emergencies. And as I said before, collecting debt during your 20s will set you back many years when compared to someone who has an emergency fund and does not go into debt. Think of your emergency fund as a foundation for your entire financial life. If you don't have an emergency fund, then every time you have an expense you were not expecting, you're going to rely on debt. And when you have too much debt, you have less resources to invest because your focus becomes staying one step ahead of your debt. Ideally, you want to have anywhere between 3 and 8 months of living expenses saved for your emergency fund. And I know saving that much is not easy and it could take you a while, so you can just begin with $1,000 and slowly build it up over time. If you want to learn more about emergency funds, check out my other video where I dive deep into why you need an emergency fund and the steps to building up yours. The next mistake you should avoid during your 20s is not investing. There's many different ways you can invest. For example, you can invest in real estate, in the stock market, or in your business, and there's many reasons why you would and should invest. You could be investing for retirement, or you could be investing so one day you can buy yourself a Ferrari. The point is you want to begin investing as soon as possible because the sooner you start, the longer your investments have to grow. I'm sure you've heard of compound interest, but if you haven't, compound interest is when you earn money on your initial investment and you earn interest on interest. For example, if you invested $100 at 8%, after the first year, you will have $108, and in the second year, you would earn 8% on the $108 and not just on the original $100 investment. So in the second year, you would have $116.64 instead of $116, and even though this might not seem like a big deal, when you begin to use bigger numbers and you do this over 10, 20, or 30 years, the difference is huge. If you invested $100 monthly starting at the age of 20 and stopped when you were 60, you would have invested a total of $48,000. However, because of compound interest, you would actually have over $300,000. Now, I know $300,000 in 40 years is not going to get you very far, but the point of this example is to show you how compound interest works. Now, let's say you have $10,000 saved, so you decide to invest that money, and every month, starting from the age of 20 all the way until you turn 60, you're going to invest $1,000. By the time you turn 60, you will have over $3.3 million. However, if you wait until you turn 35 to begin investing, that same investment strategy is only going to equal about $726,000. This really shows you how much of a difference it makes when you begin investing early on. Plus, when you begin investing early on, you have more time to recover from any price fluctuations and market drops. Think of it this way, every dollar you don't invest today can mean losing out on several $1,000s in the future. The next money trap you should avoid in your 20s is not having a long-term plan for your money. The first step to having a long-term plan does include investing, as we discussed in the last example. However, it does not stop there. Just because you took the first step and began investing does not mean you can forget about it. You have to plan for how you're going to reinvest your profits, and you must plan and prepare for when there is a drop in the market. A person who doesn't have a long-term plan for their money will see their investments dropping in value and they will begin to panic. And if you saw during a drop in the market, you could sell for less than those investments actually cost you, and this defeats the entire purpose of investing. A proper long-term plan for your money would be to stay invested even during market drops, and ideally you want to be buying more investments when they are on sale. Another part to having a long-term plan for your money is not spending on things that are not going to add any real value to your life or things that are not going to provide you a positive return. When you spend your money on things like shopping and dining out 4 days a week, then you're only working to give your money away, and that's having a short-term plan for your money, and that isn't going to benefit you in the long term. What you want to do is save as much as you can, have a plan for how that money is going to work for you, whether it's investing in your business, real estate, or stocks, and then you want to plan for how to reinvest your profit. When you're in your 20s, it's best to buy only what you need and invest the rest, and then later on in life you can go and buy that Ferrari in cash or go take a month-long vacation. At the end of the day, the biggest factor that determines if you are where you want to be financially or if you're not where you want to be comes down to avoiding these common money traps. So with that being said, if you enjoyed watching or you found this information helpful, it would really help if you like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.